Welcome to the Locked On Titans podcast. I am your host, Tyler Rowland. Titans fans, with Todd Downing being fired by the Titans on Monday, they now have an open spot for offensive coordinator. Who were some top-notch offensive coordinator candidates that are maybe more known and maybe less known? And then finally, there's an open spot on the offensive line coaching staff as well. I'll give you two familiar faces, one young and one old, who can make perfect sense for the Titans as an offensive line coach. All of that and more on today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. Let's get it.
You are Locked On Titans, your daily Tennessee Titans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Titans fans, Todd Downing is gone, but now what next? We need to go over a ton of offensive coordinator candidates, the well-known names, and some guys who may not be as well-known, but make a ton of sense. Before we get into that, do want to let you guys know that today's episode of Locked On Titans is presented by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy. All you do is pick 2 to 5 players, and if they score more or less than their PrizePicks projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on your entry. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. That's PrizePicks.com. Promo code Locked On. Thank you guys for making Locked On Titans your first listen every day. Remember, Monday through Friday, Tennessee Titans content all year round on all platforms for free. So make sure that you stay locked in to the Locked On Titans podcast. It is going to be a wild offseason. And that offseason obviously got wild on Monday with the firing of Todd Downing. So who are some guys that can replace him? We talked about some of the candidates that are obvious to you up front on yesterday's show, promoting Tim Kelly, Bill O'Brien, the offensive coordinator of the Alabama Crimson Tide, who gave Mike Vrabel his first shot as a real coordinator in the NFL, so he may return the favor. Of course, Frank Reich, a guy who Mike Vrabel has said he has a lot of respect for, could make a lot of sense. But I want to go a little bit deeper with some other candidates that make sense. And we are going to start with a guy that all of you guys were in my comment section all show long yesterday asking about, and that is Cliff Kingsbury, the just recently fired head coach of the Arizona Cardinals. Now, let's talk about Cliff Kingsbury. He's currently a free agent. So you don't got to hire him away from anybody. He's just out there. You could get him. He is traditionally an air raid offensive coordinator. That means he likes to run 10 personnel, which is 4 wide receivers. He likes to be in shotgun, likes to push the ball down the field. I don't think that sort of style of play really jives with what Mike Vrabel is looking for. Cliff Kingsbury isn't traditionally known for a ton of play action either. He's normally at the low end of the league in play action. So I just don't think there is a scheme fit there. Now, Kingsbury does run a little bit more than people would expect. 3 out of his 4 years in Arizona, he had a top 10 rushing offense. So he's not quite the pass-happy guy that maybe everyone thinks that he is. But when we talk about passing, one of the things that I don't like is just the style that Cliff Kingsbury rides with the passing game. He likes a ton of behind the line of scrimmage screen passes. If he's not doing that, he's looking at go routes down the field. So deep routes or screen passes behind the line of scrimmage. I just don't think that's what the Titans are looking for. Now, I do like that he has a tendency to go with tempo and play with tempo. I think that helped the Titans throughout the year. For some reason, Downing never truly committed to it, but probably because Titans' drive stalled out. He didn't want to get the defense back out on the field so quick. So it's a double-edged sword there with tempo. But again, I just don't see Kingsbury as a good fit for the Titans and what they want to be on offense. I don't see Kingsbury as a good fit for Mike Vrabel personality-wise. Vrabel talked about loyalty within his coaching staff and wanting to have guys on the coaching staff who weren't just always looking for their next job. And I'm sorry to say this, but I think Kingsbury would be one of those guys. Other than that, one of the big critiques of Cliff Kingsbury is his inability to adapt, his inability to adjust. And that's why you see a lot of late season collapses, not only in the NFL, but in college football. When Cliff Kingsbury is the head coach, he does not do a good job of adjusting what he's doing to how teams are playing him later in the season. Also, alignment-wise, he's not a guy with a lot of varied alignment. DeAndre Hopkins played 83% of the snaps on the left side for the Cardinals. He just doesn't move his personnel around very much. So for those reasons, I am not looking forward to Cliff Kingsbury. I wouldn't want that for the Titans. A guy, though, who I do like, and I tell you guys that because that's the popular name that everybody was on, but I want to follow that up with a guy who is lesser known to the national media and to the general average fan, but I think is the next hot offensive coordinator in the NFL. This is the guy that I would pick if the Titans go outside of the organization for help, and it's Brian Johnson, currently the quarterback coach from the Philadelphia Eagles. He's a former quarterback himself for the University of Utah University. I don't know off the top of my head exactly the order of operations there, but I digress. Former college quarterback. He is known as a quarterback developer, Brian Johnson. He has the ability to play to his quarterback strengths. He's a guy who in Philadelphia is able to go to the offensive coordinator, is able to go to the head coach and say, guys, we need to run these certain plays. We need to attack this certain way because it's best for the quarterback. And he is known as a player's coach who is primed at creating relationships with not only his quarterback, but the rest of the locker room. So a quarterback developer, a guy known for playing to his players' strengths, and a guy who's known for building solid relationships with his players. I love everything about Brian Johnson. And think about the system that he's been in Philadelphia and how that could add to what the Titans already do. A heavy quarterback run system where they actually run quarterback power, quarterback counter, quarterback sweep. Things that I have been begging for to be used with Josh Dobbs, Malik Willis, whoever would be at quarterback late in the season. They do a lot of 1-2 reads in Philadelphia where it's a high-low read one defender. He goes high, you take the low. He goes low, you take the high. Make it easy for the quarterback. And if you're somebody who thinks the Titans need to trade up in the draft and make a play for a young quarterback, well, then Brian Johnson is exactly what you want, someone who can develop that relationship, play to that young player's strengths, design an offense to do what that player does best. Also, outside of the quarterback run game, Philadelphia has a diverse run game in general with their running backs. Also, they incorporate a ton of RPO elements, and I think no matter what quarterback you go with in the future, that's going to be important. So Cliff Kingsbury is a name that is out there. There are some reports that the Titans are interested. I would not be cheering for Cliff Kingsbury as the offensive coordinator, but Brian Johnson, the quarterback coach from the Philadelphia Eagles, I think would be the perfect option for the Titans. And he's a guy who can be had because he's currently a quarterback coach. He's not an offensive coordinator, so you can actually take him away from Philadelphia since it's not a lateral move. Now, with Philly in the playoffs, you would have to wait until later in the year to get that interview, but the Titans already said they're not rushing the decisions here. And personally, I think you need to hire the general manager before you hire the offensive coordinator. I'm going to talk about that on tomorrow's show. I'm going to break down why I think the general manager needs to be hired first, and it has to do with Mike Vrabel's ego. So make sure you guys tune in tomorrow for that conversation. But we're going to continue breaking down offensive coordinator candidates. I got a couple more names that you guys have been very interested in. Joe Brady, who's the quarterback coach for Buffalo. There's been a couple of offensive coordinators fired recently, just on Tuesday, that we need to talk about as well. So more offensive coordinator candidates coming. Before we get into that, though, do want to tell you guys about today's sponsor, TurboTax. Look, guys, go to TurboTax and don't do your taxes. Meet with an expert who will do them for you. TurboTax experts can relieve you from the stress of taxes and file for you so you can do anything except your taxes. Show your eyes things that aren't taxes. Unpack a moving box that isn't taxes. Taste something that's not taxes. Sing a lullaby that isn't taxes. You guys get the drift. With TurboTax, an expert will do your taxes from start to finish, ensuring your taxes are done right, guaranteed, so you can relax and feel good to be done with your taxes. That feels good, doesn't it? Come to TurboTax and don't do your taxes. Visit TurboTax.com to learn more. Intuit TurboTax, full service products only. Video meeting while expert does your taxes is required. See guarantee details at turbotax.com/guarantees. Also, want to tell you guys about the Ultimate Football GM app, guys. I love this app. It's entirely addicting. I've been playing it a ton. Look, you manage an NFL franchise from top to bottom. Hire and fire coaches and coordinators, trade players, make draft picks, sign free agents, cut players, choose your scheme, choose your base formations. I mean, literally, it has everything. It's challenging, it's realistic. And one of my favorite parts about the Ultimate Football GM app is you can create a league and add all your friends. They have their team, you have your team. Right now, I'm in the league with all the other hosts from the Locked On NFL shows. Always a good time for some trash talk and things like that. You guys are going to love it. So, Locked On Titans listeners can get a 100% free boost to their franchise when you use the promo code Locked On in all caps inside the game store of the Ultimate Football GM app. That's Locked On in all caps. Download the game right now. Go to ultimate-gm.com or do the simple thing. Just look it up in your app store. That's ultimate-gm.com. The Ultimate Football GM app. Start your dynasty today. Titans fans, we are going to continue breaking down offensive coordinator candidates for the Titans. We just went over a couple. We're going to go over some more right now towards the end of the show. I'm going to talk about the offensive line because offensive line coach is almost as important as offensive coordinator with the state the Titans offensive line is in. I have two really good names for you as offensive line coaching candidates that I think you'll really like. For tomorrow's show, I see some of you guys in the chat already talking about it. Tomorrow's show, we're going to talk about why I think a general manager needs to be hired before the offensive coordinator is decided on. And we're going to talk about DeAndre Hopkins, whether the Titans should make that move. So that's going to be tomorrow's show. Make sure that you stay locked in to the Locked On Titans podcast. But as for these offensive coordinator candidates, I just told you guys, not that interested in Cliff Kingsbury. I don't think he's a good fit for the Titans for multiple reasons. I love Brian Johnson, the quarterback coach from the Philadelphia Eagles, a great guy to have for a young quarterback, which the Titans will need in the near future. He's a great coach for right now as well. But getting into some other options here other than those two guys. Number one guy I want to talk about, a guy that you guys have mentioned a little bit here and there, is Joe Brady. Joe Brady was the passing game coordinator for the LSU Tigers when they had the best college football season of all time. He then, off the momentum of that season, was hired as the offensive coordinator for the Carolina Panthers. After a year and a half, he was fired mid-season last year, and this year he was hired as the quarterback coach of the Buffalo Bills. So Joe Brady, quarterback coach of the Buffalo Bills right now. Guys, I'm going to put this pretty bluntly. My sources in Carolina have told me that this would not be a good move. And I agree based on the information that I'm being given. Look, Joe Brady is a smart guy. He was viewed as a wonder kid, a young guy with a ton of creativity and a ton of talent. But here's the reality. He wasn't even the offensive coordinator at LSU. He wasn't the play caller at LSU. He helped with wide receivers, and he was the passing game coordinator who basically suggested passing plays to the offensive coordinator at LSU. And forgive me for not giving the guy his proper credit, but you got Joe Burrow, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase. I mean, you probably look pretty good being involved with that offense. And again, on the back of that run, he got an offensive coordinator position that he simply wasn't ready to take. He is a guy who doesn't use a lot of functional motion. He's not a guy who understands how to use motion to get people open. He does want a balanced offense, passing and running, and that was one of the reasons he clashed with Matt Rule, who really wanted to go Titan style and play defense and limit turnovers and run the ball down people's throat. He did, however, take the Carolina Panthers from 27th in offensive DVOA to 17th in offensive DVOA his first season with Carolina. He is from the Sean Payton tree. He studied under Sean Payton a little bit. Quick game, 5-step drops, likes play action under center, the screen game. So all of that does mesh with what the Titans want. The experience he's getting in Buffalo right now is a totally different offense than what he's used to. Again, quarterback run elements, deep routes, RPO concepts, all of that. So I would imagine that if you combine his kind of traditional West Coast style with that quarterback-friendly RPO offense in Buffalo, you add those two together, that's a lot of experience. But the point is, he's still too young and doesn't have enough experience to be a guy to come in and be the Titans offensive coordinator right now. So for those reasons, I am not very interested in having Joe Brady as the Titans offensive coordinator. I think he needs to stay the quarterback coach. And my sources in Buffalo tell me that once Ken Dorsey is ultimately hired as a head coach in the NFL, it will be Joe Brady who gets to be the offensive coordinator in Buffalo. So I don't think that, for those reasons right there, I don't think that Joe Brady is going to take the opportunity, and I don't think it's a very good fit either. Another guy who does make a lot of sense, who I want to mention quickly, is Brian Callahan, the offensive coordinator in Cincinnati. My sources in Cincinnati tell me he is not interested in leaving the organization unless he's being offered a head coaching position. So with that in mind, while Brian Callahan, the offensive coordinator for the Bengals, would be a very good fit, in my opinion, he's a top candidate, my information tells me that he's not going to leave to be an offensive coordinator. So for me, don't think that that's a very good option for the Titans. I don't think it's a realistic option for the Titans. Now, of course, we talked about some of these other options for the Titans. We talked about Frank Reich and Bill O'Brien and Tim Kelly from yesterday. But listen, I think it would be wise for the Titans to get somebody from outside the organization, some fresh blood, some fresh schematics, some fresh eyes to look over what the Titans are doing. I don't know that just immediately going with the internal promotion of Tim Kelly, I wouldn't be upset if the Titans do that, but I don't know if that's necessarily the right path for the Titans. What I do want to say is, though, there are some other names that have popped up here within the last few hours that I think make sense. Sean McVay may be leaving the Los Angeles Rams, and he has officially told his coaching staff they can go do what they want. His offensive coordinator, Liam Cohen, is now back at the University of Kentucky, but the passing game coordinator for the Los Angeles Rams, Zach Robinson, I think could get a look for the Titans. Obviously, a similar scheme to what the Titans want to do. Tutelage from Sean McVay, which has worked out across the NFL. I think he's a younger guy who it may be a risk to take, but worth taking a look at. This is a name that just popped up here in the last few hours that I think makes a lot of sense. Scott Turner, who was just released and fired by the Washington Commanders. Scott Turner, the son of Norv Turner, guy with West Coast in his blood. Listen, I think that he got a lot. Scott Turner got a lot out of the quarterbacks and out of the offenses in Washington. Think about the quarterbacks that he's had. Taylor Heineke, Alex Smith, Carson Wentz, Sam Howell this week. I mean, he's going through 8 quarterbacks, terrible offensive line play. I think Scott Turner has real talented NFL experience, and I think he could be a great fit for the Titans. I know there are a lot of these young guys, but Brian Johnson is my number one choice outside of an internal promotion. If they don't do that, then I think Scott Turner could make a ton of sense. He's had a ton of upheaval around him and still gotten the best out of some bum quarterbacks, if we're honest, with some terrible offensive line play as well. So those are the options. Again, Cliff Kingsbury, that's a no for me. Brian Johnson, quarterback coach of the Eagles, that is a ding, 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 5-star yes. Joe Brady, quarterback coach for Buffalo, I'm out on that. Brian Callahan, the offensive coordinator from Cincinnati, would love it. Don't think it's realistic. Frank Reich would love it. Bill O'Brien, I would be okay with it. Tim Kelly, I would be okay with it. Those are kind of the options that make sense to me. Let me know down in the chat who would be your top choice for offensive coordinator out of the names that I just mentioned. But now we got to talk about the other big vacancy on the offensive coaching staff, and that is offensive line coaching. Guys, 2 familiar faces, 2 names that you will know very well, and a Tennessee Titans player that I think could retire and immediately go to the coaching staff. We're going to get to that in just a moment. Before we do, want to tell you guys about the best tasting protein bars in the galaxy from our friends over at Built Bar. You get the best of both worlds with Built Bar. You get all the health benefits of a protein bar. You get low calorie, low sugar, high protein, high fiber, but you get all the taste benefits of a candy bar. They have delicious flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, coconut almond, and all the bars are covered in real chocolate. And Built Bar has gotten so big that not only can you go to built.com and buy all their bars, but now you can go to your local Walmart or Sam's Club and pick up a pack of the Built Bars. They have their 13-bar variety pack out right now. You will not be disappointed. So check out built.com or go to Sam's Club or Walmart and get your hands on the best tasting protein bars in the galaxy, Built Bar. Titans fans, thank you for making the Locked On Titans podcast your first listen every single day. Remember, Monday through Friday, Tennessee Titans content for free all year long on all platforms, including here on the Locked On Titans YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe, hit the notification bell, and throw a thumbs up on the video right now if you like any of the coordinator candidates that I just gave to you. You make Locked On Titans your first listen, but for your second listen, check out Locked On NFL. You get your Titans news here with me every day in under 30 minutes. Get your NFL national news in under 30 minutes with Locked On NFL. And I host the Thursday show of Locked On NFL. So it'd be nice if you guys gave me some support and subscribed over there. The content is free. So all you got to do is click a few buttons to show your support. And I definitely do appreciate it. But do want to remind you guys, I see you guys in the chat talking about it. Taylor Lewan, DeAndre Hopkins. But tomorrow's show is going to be another banger, folks. We're going to talk about Taylor Lewan. I got a rant on Taylor Lewan for you guys tomorrow. 2, we're going to talk about DeAndre Hopkins. I'm going to tell you why I don't think DeAndre Hopkins makes sense for the Titans. And I'm also going to tell you why I think it is imperative that the Titans hire a general manager before they hire an offensive coordinator to check Mike Vrabel's ego. So we're going to talk about all that on tomorrow's show, but we're going to cap off today talking about the offensive line coach vacancy. I see some people in the chat. They got what I was putting down. Offensive line coach is arguably as important as offensive coordinator at this stage in the game for the Titans. The offensive line is in ruins, and they're going to have a ton of new faces on the offensive line. Earlier in the week, I already laid out my plan for what I want the Titans to do on the offensive line. In my opinion, center Aaron Brewer. He can be a center at his size in the NFL. Re-sign Nate Davis. The market estimation right now is about $7 million per year. You could probably get his cap hit to about $4 or $5 million a year. That's incredibly cheap when Nate Davis is playing his best ball. So Nate Davis re-signed at right guard, Nicholas Petit-Frere at right tackle, at left guard and left tackle. I want one big name free agent signing. Maybe not big name, but Andre Dillard, Isaiah Wynn, Isaac Samolo, a guy like that to fill either left guard or left tackle in free agency. And then you go into the draft. If you fill left tackle, you take Skoronski. If you fill left guard, you take Paris Johnson or Broderick Jones. And now you have a rebuilt offensive line that can be a good O-line. But what's important is you are going to need an offensive line coach that can help that group gel. Okay? And Josh, I see your question here. A lot of you guys are asking about medical staff. Guys, I'm going to shoot you straight all the time. And people who listen to the show say, know my catchphrase. I'm not a doctor. So while I agree with you guys, I would love to see the medical staff replaced, the strength and conditioning staff replaced. I know football. I don't know medicine. I don't know physical therapy. I don't know training. And I'm never going to get up here and tell you guys I know stuff that I don't know. So I'm going to talk about football. And although I agree with you guys, I'd like to see changes there. I simply am just not qualified to talk about who to replace them with or anything like that. It's just impossible to do that from who I am. So I'm not going to lie to you guys. I'm not a doctor. Okay. But moving to the offensive line, two faces who are familiar to Titans fans who make sense. Number one, Mike Munchak. The great Mike Munchak was with the Titans as an offensive line coach from 1997 to 2010, got promoted to be the head coach for 3 years, 2011 through 2013. It did not end well. He was 22-26, not a great record, left on bad terms, but things are different now. Amy is in charge, new general manager, new coaches, new players. Mike Munchak, even at 62 years old, is still one of the greatest offensive line coaches in the history of the NFL. And yes, Josh, he is available. So after Munchak left Tennessee, he coached the offensive line for the Pittsburgh Steelers from 2014 to 2018. He then joined Vic Fangio in Denver as the offensive line coach from 2019 to 2021. He did not coach last year. A reunion with the Tennessee Titans to finish his career where it began would be just poetic justice. And the Titans need an old sage offensive line coach to get this thing together. Okay? They need personnel, but they need better coaching as well. Now, this is what I'm excited to say. If not Munchak, and what I think is more realistic, is Ben Jones. Guys, Ben Jones is going to retire. He hurt his knee earlier in the year and gutted it out. I believe it was the Houston game maybe, where Mike Vrabel walked off with Ben Jones and telling him he loved him, and they were both crying. That display of emotion told me this is Ben Jones' last year in the NFL, and he knows it. And Mike Vrabel knows it. And Mike Vrabel has said he looks at him as a best friend. That's one of Mike Vrabel's best friends, Ben Jones. So the relationship is there. Not only that, but with the multiple concussions at the end of the year, guys, it's time for Ben Jones to retire. He's done enough. The best free agent signing of the John Robinson era. I know you could say Danico Autry if you want, but Ben Jones has been the center here since 2016, and he has changed the offensive line. Okay, the center is usually the smartest offensive lineman in terms of knowing responsibilities, all of that. And I had somebody say, I don't know if we want an offensive line coach with no coaching experience. Well, there are already people in the Titans organization saying that he will be a great coach one day. And let's be honest, Ben Jones has been coaching the offensive line since he showed up. He's the center. He's the old man in the offensive line room. Ben Jones has been coaching this offensive line for years now. So let's not pretend that he doesn't know how to do it. I would take Ben Jones over Keith Carter right now as an offensive line coach. So I think with the relationship with Vrabel, with the familiarity with the franchise, with the need for offensive line coach, and with Ben Jones' pedigree as a person, I think Ben Jones makes a ton of sense. And man, Josh Wilson, chat MVP today. Josh Wilson, I agree. Someone pointed out to me as well, Kevin Mawai. Kevin Mawai could make a ton of sense for the Titans as well. Familiarity with the organization, Hall of Fame pedigree as a player. I think that can make a ton of sense. So let's recap what we've talked about today. Titans offensive coordinator candidates. Cliff Kingsbury, that's a no for me. Scheme-wise, doesn't fit. Personality-wise, ambition-wise, doesn't fit. Brian Johnson, quarterback coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. Quarterback developer, players coach, coming from an offense the Titans should be stealing from. Great at playing to his quarterback strengths. I love Brian Johnson, the quarterback coach for the Eagles for the Titans OC position. Joe Brady, not experienced enough, was given too much too fast anyway from LSU. Not interested in Joe Brady, and I've been told he's not interested in leaving Buffalo. Brian Callahan, the offensive coordinator for Cincinnati, not going to leave Cincinnati unless he gets a head coaching job. That's what my intel says. Then we talk about Zach Robinson from the Los Angeles Rams, passing game coordinator. Too young for my taste, but an interesting guy. Scott Turner, a possibility after being fired by Washington. But again, I have candidates who I like better than Scott Turner. Frank Reich, Bill O'Brien, and Tim Kelly as an eternal promotion are probably the favorites. At offensive line coach, Mike Munchak, who's a free agent, or my favorite, Ben Jones. So those are the guys that I think make the most sense for the Titans' open vacancies on the offensive side of the ball. Remember, tomorrow, we're going to be talking DeAndre Hopkins. We're going to be talking Taylor Lewan's future with the Titans. And we're going to talk about why the Titans need to hire a general manager before they decide on an offensive coordinator. So there you go, guys. That's today's show. Hope you enjoyed a ton of great info. Later in the week, I'm going to go back over some of my general manager candidates because I realized I put it at the end of the show yesterday, and some of you guys missed that. So that's going to be coming later in the week as well. Guys, the offseason is prime time here on the Locked On Titans podcast. I'm going to be going over 180 draft prospects. I'm going to be going over dozens of free agents at every single position. And once the Titans make their moves, make their signings, make their picks, I'm going to be right here with you guys to break it down with the intensity and passion that only I can deliver. Thank you all so much for tuning in. That's going to do it for me today, folks. As always, I am your host, Tyler Rowland, and this was Locked On Titans.